Hello. Today I will be featuring the Yamato, the Japanese tier 10 battleship. Now, finding a good build for this battleship has actually been surprisingly challenging because, well, the ship kind of performs well with pretty much any build right now. You can spec it in multiple different ways. I tried some heavy AA builds, but ultimately that just felt like a waste of points because, well, at least on EU, I can't be 100% certain about this on NA, but at least on EU, facing any carriers at tier 10 is extremely rare. And ultimately, if you don't explicitly division with a carrier, I see little point in going for any full AA specs. Ultimately, I went for a bit of a compromise where I took one AA perk, which is AFT, and of course, not only does it significantly boost your AA range, it also significantly boosts your secondary range, and your secondaries are quite good. So this was like my compromise when it comes to specking for anti-air. Yes, I have one perk, so I'm not completely helpless, but if I do get focused by a carrier, well, then it happens. Even if I went full AA, if you get focused by a carrier, it's still not going to save you. So it felt like a big waste of points going too heavily into the whole AA investment. First perk though, I have the dual spotter planes or direction center. I find this perk extremely strong, not just when you push into somewhere and you want to spot for incoming torps or DDs hiding behind islands. Also, if you see planes coming your way, you can pop both the planes and you have some additional protection. It won't protect you indefinitely, but it's a nice, like, it's a kind of oh shit button when a carrier is focusing you. You can get up two planes and this can spread out torpedoes and stuff if you don't have any cruiser near you who can use defensive AA or understands to use defensive AA and so forth. So ultimately not worth it. Not worth investing any more than that. Superintendent is still a pretty much a must-have because, well, that additional heal is just so strong on the Yamato, because usually these tier 10 battleships, unless you play recklessly aggressive, they tend to last very long, and being able to use multiple heals is of course fantastic. I've also chosen to opt for Adrenaline Rush, or Adrenaline Rage as I like to call it, because these massive guns benefit so greatly from it. And of course you have to have Expert Marksman because the turret traverse is painfully slow. Just absolutely painfully slow, so not having the turret traverse is honestly rough. So far it's been pretty straightforward. And one of the biggest threats, honestly, you deal pretty well with AP. HE, I tried some specs where I'm tanking HE additionally well, but it didn't really feel that much worth it, because when you face, the only one that I could consider worth it would be what's it called, the new preventive fire measures or whatever it's called, that you can only have one fire on the superstructure. It's nice, but ultimately when you're being HE spammed, it's more than just the fire dealing the damage. It's also the fact that, well, with all these people running IFHE, you're actually taking a ton of HE superstructure damage as well. So you're paying 4 points to mitigate a very small part of the damage, and it just didn't feel worth it, because so much of the damage you take comes from other sources. So ultimately I decided Vigilance was the best use of my 3 points, because torps are still the absolute biggest threat. The reason torps are such a threat to a battleship is of course that they force your repair instantly. And if the enemy has any cruisers paying attention, as soon as they see you use that repair, they can follow it up with HE spam, and then you got unrepairable fires. And it's more than the torpedo threat is more than the initial damage. Of course, the initial damage is a problem, but it's more the fact that it forces your repair, and everyone on the entire server knows that it forces your repair. So that's what makes it so incredibly risky. So ultimately, well, really? I thought he would not reverse as far as he did. A bit surprised he actually reversed that far. I thought he would change course, but such things happen. I'm pushing in fairly aggressively into C, but not really overly aggressive at this point, as mentioned before. You see how much I'm healing up? See, this is why I'm not too worried about the fire damage that I'm eating, because fire damage is easily healable, and I don't consider it the end of the world. That damage from battleships though, now that hurts significantly more. Anyway, as I was saying, ultimately I decided to go for stealth, which was my old build, because I think not only being able to disengage from, if you're being HE spammed, being able to disengage is more valuable, and being able to heal it up, or being able to shoot from stealth, open up from stealth and get these huge alpha volleys and getting into positions in stealth is more valuable than any of the other perks, any of the reduction in fire or whatever perks. So ultimately, like, if you look at the damage I'm still eating on average, very little of this is actually HE or fire damage. Yes, you have games sometimes where you get absolutely HE spammed, but and fires deal a ton of damage, but I've never found that to always, like, I never found that to be the reason I sink, is because there was just too many fires on me all the time and I couldn't deal with it. I've never actually found that to be the reason. So ultimately, here I can just chill, slow down a bit. Because I run the stealth build, if I want, I can become undetected at this point, and that's kind of what I like about the stealth build. But ultimately, oh, never mind, the Turpitz is actually close enough, he's slowed down, he really wants me. Now of course the rest of my team, I'm not entirely certain what they're doing. I have a Izuma behind me with a lot of HP. Oh, this Chapai, he's toast. Chapai is of course extremely squishy. He got spotted. I guess he wasn't hoping to get spotted, but if you get spotted as a Chapai like that, that's gonna be a very short story. So I mean, I got the fire, but my heal is ticking, and my heal will heal more than the fire deals damage. I got 2 fires, so I blow my repair, and I just go behind the cliff. And now I'm undetected. If I wanted to, I could chill here for a good time and heal up. And they couldn't really do much about it. And that's what I mean. I find the stealth to be able to just disengage to be more important than that one fire I can avoid. Let's see, how's this game going? Well, I'm still waiting for this Izuma next to me, maybe do a bit of pushing, because you don't want to push whenever, of course, when you play this kind of play style that I have, meaning you don't run any sort of fire protection. I don't run any sort of fire protection besides, of course, the 2 upgrades. So if you run this kind of style, then you have to be careful about not pushing while your repair is on cooldown. In fact, I only start pushing now that it's starting to get off cooldown, meaning it's only got 30 seconds, so if I do get 2 fires, I'll be able to repair it fairly soon. And I wait with any sort of pushing until it's on cooldown, and you kind of want to play around your repair. This Turpitz has been dealing a lot of damage to me, by the way. He's been constantly getting broadside from here, and no one else seems to be able to shoot him, or I don't know what my team is doing, so giving him some hurting to discourage him. And now I have to angle against the rest. As you can see, I got a Korofos shooting from there, and Iowa who's pushing the left-hand flank. Let's see if I can punish this Iowa. You see, a 15k volley. The Turpitz has gotten so many juicy volleys on me, and I feel the problem is, of course, no one else is really pushing from my team besides me, so I'm kind of leading the charge. But I'm taking it fairly calmly. If you notice, by the way, my positioning, which is of course extremely important when you play Battleship, especially if you're going to play the kind of Battleship I like to play, which is without fire reduction, is you have to play around the islands a fair amount. The islands on my right protect me from the Atago, Izumo, Turpitz. In fact, the only ones who can really shoot me are the ones I'm already shooting at, which are the ones on my left. And I'm making sure to not give them too much broadside either. And, well, 2 weapons, really? Well, at least got some damage on this Turpitz. But ultimately I'm making sure that they can't get any sort of perfect broadside on me, and I'm angled mostly against them, and the guys on my right can't even shoot at me. And I'm just calmly waiting here for my next heal to come up. I can push again once my next heal comes up, but I'm not really in a hurry. Oh, that Ivar really reversed. I didn't expect that. Ivar reversing full broadside to a Yamato. That's highly not recommended. Am I stuck? No, I can move. Oh, he got pretty lucky with that timing. But of course you can start seeing the notice I'm half HP, of course. So this is where you start seeing the effects of adrenaline rage. 23-second reload. I of course run the reload mod on my Yamato, but still having a 23-second reload on your main guns is pretty terrifying when we're talking about Yamato gun power. The Shimakaze smokes me up as he pushes into the cap. He wants to smoke him. See, that's smart Shimakaze play. He wants to smoke himself up because he's going for the cap, but at the same time he realizes he can use his smoke to cover me up as well, because well, I'm the most frontward pushing battleship in this cap who can help him, so he helps me out in the same way. That's intelligent play, and I like to see that. I don't know what this Friedrich de Grosse is doing. He's pushing into three battleships and a DD. Now, if I was this Iowa, I would get absolutely deleted. We'll see how RNG treats me though, because this Iowa is making a massive mistake. Okay, I got 0 damage penetrations and 2 aura pens. That guy made a massive mistake, and I'm a bit salty right now that I cannot punish him, because that was some terrible RNG from me. My aim was fairly good, and he turned full broadside, which is like a massive mistake. You shouldn't do it. He's still sailing full broadside. Once again, doing this in an Iowa should be a death sentence against the Yamato. Is he going to get punished now? Wow, really? Really? Well, I'm glad that that's in the commentary, because at least no one can blame me this game for having some sort of godlike RNG, because that was some terrible goddamn luck right there. That Iowa should have gotten deleted and punished hard. But it seems the RNG gods favor him, so no such luck. The Zuma that's been hiding behind me has finally pushed past me, which is of course great. He's finally found some sort of pushing power. The Kurfürst is making a massive misplay right now. He's pushing into a cap where Shimakaze is, and Shimakaze of course is probably giggling, because that is going to be a lot of damage. It doesn't matter if he has Hydra and he sees the torps coming, because well, the ship is so big and clunky he can't really avoid them. And you notice I didn't aim for his hull, because his hull can bounce that. I aimed above it, which also happens to damage his guns, which of course helps the Shimakaze, because he can't shoot at the Shimakaze while the Shimakaze flees. And this Iowa continues to have his incredible RNG armor that seems to be protecting him from any incoming damage. I aim for his guns, you see it once again. Waiting to see if is he gonna give broadside, because if he gives broadside then I can do a lot of damage. He's giving a lot of hull. I might get pens here. Might get some good pens here. Not really. He bounced 3 of them, and I have 3 pens, but only 1 counted, so that happens. That's because, well, those ribbons are extremely unreliable. This guy is burning to death, I think. Do I need to waste even a volley on him? I think he's just gonna burn to death. Let's kill him before he gets a volley off, just in case. Just in case. You never know when RNG decides to favor a guy in front of you. I've had some crazy RNG shooting at Yamatos at times, so... But this game, and especially this game, my RNG really seems to dislike me, because I've been shooting volley after volley after volley at this guy, and I can't get a hit. Now I popped my spotter plane. First of all, I don't know where the Tago is, and I don't know if the Tash can torp. So this is where I pop my dual spotter planes to gain some area of vision with my planes. There's some torps, and this is why I'm getting both my planes in the air. I want to know where the Atago is as well, and this is like this scouting around me, which will help me find torps, help me find DDs, overall just be really useful. Now the bigger threat here is actually the Tashkent, because Iowa armor, Iowa I can bounce, Iowa shells I can bounce easily in a Yamato, but the Tashkent however can set me on fire, he can torp me, he can do all sorts of nasty things, so I'm actually going to focus on him. I've adjusted my course a bit in case he's launched a second volley of torps. He could be running Adrenaline Rage, which means his torps are already on cooldown or very close to it. And of course I continue hammering him with shells. As I said, he's most likely running Adrenaline Rage, since his torps were already on cooldown. You have to keep that in mind when you're playing Battleship now. Any old timers you had, I would like, this guy shouldn't have his torps up yet, he just used them, but if they're running Adrenaline Rage, they can have them up much faster than you would expect. Now that I know that he's used them again, I'm going to focus on this Iowa. He's giving way too much broadside again. I don't know if I'll be able to punish him though, because his RNG armor seems... Holy crap, his RNG, 2 pens that don't count again. This guy's RNG is absolutely god tier. Maybe it's because it's not running camo or something, it's some sort of insane RNG armor that just protects him. And he bounces 2 of my shells. Okay, I'm gonna shoot his nose now, because Yamato guns can overmatch these noses easily. If I don't get significant damage now, then it's something more wrong. Finally, I overmatch it. That's of course the reason why the Yamato is considered one of the strongest battleships in the game right now, because of its ability to overmatch the frontal armor, the bow armor of many battleships. There are very few exceptions, and that's why it's considered overpowered, because you can't angle against it, because it will punish you. However, my RNG hasn't exactly been agreeing, because, well, I've been shooting this guy's broadside and doing no damage, and only now that he's close and I'm getting his nose do I finally kill him. Turning hard right, because there's most likely torps coming again. I'd be very surprised if there weren't. And of course I want to focus, this time I'm going to focus on the Atago. He's got torps as well, and he's got significantly higher chance of setting fires. He's giving too much broadside, he's probably going to turn away, but he's too close to be able to actively avoid these shells. When you get this close to a Yamato, you've kind of signed your death warrant at that point, and there's absolutely nothing he can do. He gets wrecked. Now, looking at my reload, you see how low my HP is? I'm down to 16k HP. I don't know what my New Orleans Atago are doing, why they're still up north there. He should turn hard right, otherwise he's going to ground. His only option is a hard turn to the right. He actually turns too late and ends up grounding. I wanted my Kraken there because, well, he should have turned hard right to avoid grounding, but because he potatoed that turn, he ended up grounding and he smoked up. And now I think it's going to be pretty impossible for me to secure my Kraken, because there's not much I can do hitting a guy in a smoke. I have no vision. His smoke of course means that he can't hit me because he can't even see me, but it's still a bit unfortunate, because I would have loved to have my Kraken to end this game. 996, yeah, there's no chance. I have a really good fast reload right now thanks to Adrenaline Rage, but the game is going to end before I can finish it. Really good money and credits, but that's of course I'm running the Gamescom camo, which gives me so much so much bonuses to this. Damage wise though, 248k, which is of course quite nice. Dreadnought, I always like getting Dreadnought in my battleships because well, it means you have done a good job. You have done your job as a tank as well. Looking at the base XP, 2.7k. I'm a bit salty I didn't get my Kraken there, because, well, if that Tashkent hadn't been a potato and had turned to actually avoid grounding, then he would have probably died to those shells, but he decided to ground and smoke up instead. Saved his own life, I mean, lost the game, but denied my Kraken, so I guess there is that. Looking at damage here, it gets pretty interesting. I mean, secondaries didn't really do much, but then again, I'm not secondary spec. Ultimately, 101 hits and 17-minute game. Potential damage 2.6 million, so I did tank a fair amount. Damage received 145,000. I mean, you see I tanked 38k worth of fires and 44k worth of HE, and that's not really the end of the world to me, because that's such easily healable damage. So ultimately I've been pretty satisfied with this build. It's not really specified in any way. It's kind of a pretty solid jack of all trades. You're not exceptionally good against anything, but you don't really need to be, because the Yamato is already so good at everything. So all you really need to do is bolster the basic things that it has. You get the stealth to get those alpha strikes and to be able to disengage. You get the AFT to buff up the AA a bit and the secondary range a bit. Superintendent for an additional heal. Adrenaline Rage for that increased damage. And if you do get focused by a carrier, you have the dual fighter planes to send up into the air if need be. So ultimately, I quite like this build, and it is the one I have decided to use on my Yamato, because it's a very all-round solid build that doesn't really have any real weaknesses besides weakness to fire. But if you play safe enough, the stealth kind of works as a counter to the fire, because you can disengage. And the problem, of course, with dealing fire damage to someone is that if you spam H on someone and you deal fire damage, you need to actually kill him before he can heal, because fire damage is light damage, and if your target gets to disengage, well, he'll just heal it all back up and your damage is basically negated. And that's really the goal of this build, is to be able to negate that damage instead of wasting so many spec points trying to stop it, which is pretty impossible to begin with. Anyway, let's move on to the build itself. Right, the build itself. Module wise, I always recommend Premium Repair, Premium Heal. If you can afford it, please do get it. It makes life much easier. Here are some changes. I switched to Auxiliary Mode 1 instead of Main Armaments Mode 1. That's because I never really lose turrets, and I find it more important to keep my AA and secondaries alive. Accuracy, faster gun reload, damage control system 1 and 2, because I'm not getting any of this from the perks, I need to get it from the upgrades, that fire reduction and concealment to help with the concealment build. Captain perks wise, we have Direction Center of Catapult, and well, this is just if you get focused by a carrier, Expert Marksman and Adrenaline Rush, Superintendent and Vigilance, AFT and Concealment Expert. Now if you have to take this in a priority, you're leveling a new captain, Direction Center, Expert Marksman, Superintendent, and then I'd go Concealment, followed by probably Vigilance after Concealment Expert, because if you do get spotted, it's probably by a DD, and finally Advanced Firing Training and Adrenaline Rush as the last bonuses to the build, so to say. Now, I've liked this build quite a lot actually. I think it has a nice synergy, and the stealth, well, it requires you to play around the stealth of course, but I still think this is a very strong build in 0.60. Anyway, that was my Yamato commentary. I hope you enjoyed it.